Our project today is to install this Watt Pure Sine power inverter. We chose a 2000 watt inverter because we basically only want it to run our outside kitchen fridge and our inside fridge on electricity instead of propane while we're in transit. That way we'll be able to keep the propane off and be 50 state legal. This particular model has the DC connections on one side and the exhaust fans, and then on the other side we have a 20 amp plug. So it's not a hardwire version, which it's really, there are very few inverters that actually have a hardwire connection for a 2000 watt inverter. Once you go up to 2500, 3000 watts, a lot of them do have that hardwire connection, but I didn't feel comfortable buying some of these lesser known brands. This particular one, Ames Power, is in Nevada, and so I think just having it more local, as in inside the country, the support might be a little bit better should we need it. Also on this inverter we have a remote power connection, so I did get the remote power so that we can turn it on and off from inside the rig. It has a USB connection as well. I'm not going to be using that. The power indicator and protection lights are right here. Red for protection, green for power. This is the chassis ground, and then of course your 20 amp plug. So I've got a 20 amp plug that you'll see how I'm going to install that. I am going to put this on our transfer switch, so we're only using this when we don't have shore power. Otherwise everything else is going to run on the typical shore power. Without further ado, we'll get situated in the underbelly and start installing this thing. Here it is installed in our basement storage. This wall that this is mounted on is the front wall of the basement, and then on the other side of that wall is like where the propane and batteries and stuff is housed. To install this, I put a couple of screws into a framing member. There's a big 1.5 by 3 inch piece of metal stock back there, so I drilled into that so that this has something solid to mount to, and then the other two are just into the wood so that it doesn't flop around. To install this, I used heavy gauge cable, and I drilled through the wall here, so positive and negative, and then I wrapped this one with tape so that I know, if I ever need to take it apart, I know which one's positive and which one's negative. Although this does have reverse polarity protection on it. If you were to hook it up incorrectly, it would not operate and would not burn out on you. On this side, I have a power cord, or a remote turn on lead. This is like a phone jack type connection, and that just plugs in. I'll show you how I did the install of that panel in a moment. This is the chassis ground, and so I drilled a hole right behind here and connected that to the frame ground. And then this is how I have things connected into my transfer switch. Since this is not a hardwired version, I got a 20 amp, true 20 amp plug. And then this is a dryer cable that I picked up and got the parts out of so that I had strong enough or heavy duty enough cable. Now in the transfer switch, if I can get this open one-handed, there we go. In the transfer switch, I have the neutral is in the middle, and then L1 and L2. I have it connected to the generator labeled section, but obviously this is not a generator, but it serves the same purpose. The inverter is only going to run when I'm not plugged into shore power or when I don't have shore power. And I do have a jumper wire going between terminal 1 and terminal 2, L1 and L2, so that should I need something on either side of, either leg, it will it'll be powered. So here is the chassis ground coming down, and as you can see down here, I just drilled that into the main part of the frame here, right next to some other grounds that are part of the original equipment. And here is the positive and negative coming off the inside here. I have the power cable going to a 200 amp breaker, and then I go onto the positive lead of the battery here, and the negative goes straight into the battery below. This is screwed down, like everything is screwed down, so it's not gonna go anywhere. Okay, so inside in my main control panel, I mounted this remote turn on switch, so we can turn that on and off from here. And one thing that you have to know about installing an inverter is that typically all of your electricity, especially if you got a transfer switch, all of your electricity is going to be going through here. The thing is, that means your charger, your battery charger converter, will also be pulling power out of here. Now, if you're running your inverter on battery and your converter is also trying to run off the output of the inverter, well, you're going to have this electrical loop, and it's not going to be good. So what I did was I actually ran a wire from my converter into this transfer switch, into the hot leg, so the shore power leg, and I ran that kind of up along here and then into where the converter is back here. So the plug is operated only on shore power, and that added a little bit of time to the install, but obviously I couldn't make it work without it. Now overall, I think the install took me about 3 hours or so in order to get everything set up and working. One thing that we have a limitation with is we have the factory lead acid batteries, so we can't run a whole lot over the course of a driving day, because we don't have a DC to DC charger. So if we put that inverter on and we're trying to run both refrigerators, the one inside the kitchen as well as the one in the outdoor kitchen, it does drain our battery within maybe a half a day. Our inverter does have a power protection, so that if the battery voltage drops down, I think it's below 11 volts, it will go ahead and turn the inverter off, and there's an audible tone that sounds that indicates that's what's going on. We did run into this during our first trip, and makes me think that maybe a DC to DC battery charger is possibly in our future. At the very least, having the inverter running the refrigerators for the first half of our trip, like in the morning, is good. I don't have to run the propane while we're on the road, and we can keep the outdoor fridge cool. So definitely a benefit of having it, but not having the ability to recharge the batteries. I was a little bit naive. I thought that the power cord, the umbilical for the 7-way was going to provide enough power, because our truck does provide up to 30 amps of power on that pin. But unfortunately,
smart alternators and things like that, it's not providing the full power to get that full 30 amps. I have been looking at a couple of DC to DC chargers, debating on whether I should go with like a 40 amp or maybe even higher, and that way we can be pretty much guaranteed that our batteries are going to be full when we get to camp. I'm trying to balance the expense of this process. The DC to DC chargers are, they start, Renogy has one, it's 20 amps for, I think it's $140. They've got a 40 amp for $200, and then 60 amp I think is like $260. So I don't know whether that's going to be the best solution for us. Obviously the setup that we have is not capable because we don't have solar. We have no other way to charge the batteries while we're disconnected from shore power. So I've kind of started this project and I can't use it in the state that it's in, but that's due to a lack of understanding of the process ahead of time. All in all, the inverter itself does exactly what it's supposed to do, and so for that reason I like it. It protects itself from under voltage, over voltage, provides a nice clean, theoretically, I haven't put an oscilloscope on it, but it's supposed to be a nice clean signal. And the things that I've tried to run it on or run with it are working properly. I'm not trying to run air conditioners. I'm not trying to run our washer or a dryer. Not that it would hold up to a dryer at 1100 watts or whatever it is, but it does work. So definitely not a problem with the inverter. It's a problem with my understanding of our battery capacity and our ability to charge our batteries. So with that being said, I would recommend this 2000 watt inverter. Ames Power, again, they're based in Nevada, so I feel like they're providing a quality product, and I haven't had to contact customer support yet, but other reviews say that their customer support is top-notch. That's it for this episode of the Alcohol-Free RV. My name's Todd. Don't forget to thumbs up this video down below if you like this one, and subscribe so you can get more updates and mods and upgrades along the way. See you next time. To do in order to get this working. All of a sudden there's a ton of traffic. Got some flies flying around.